All right, Mr. Mayor, we are live and ready when you are.
All right, sounds good. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Seldovia City Council, Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. Time is 6:11 p.m. This is a work session. And we do have members Kennedy, Rojas, Langbart, and Keithley in attendance. And we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We have a couple items tonight. The 2025 to 2030 draft capital improvement plan, as well as a second item of discussion for the CDBG, otherwise known as the Community Development Block Grant project discussion. We'll go ahead and let Heidi or Liz kick it off here.
So we did have a previous discussion on this topic, or at least new projects for inclusion of the CIP site. Late September 23rd, I believe. And I did include that memo just so we can track on page 83. You'll see that those projects that we discussed already that are included in this packet are still listed as new because they're new for the project or updated. But I won't go into a lot of detail about it unless you guys want me to, because they're pretty much stand where we discussed that before. And that's the value added building, boat haul out, hydraulic trailer upgrade, delivery safe arts program, stormwater management plan and drainage next phase, historic boardwalk repair and improvement project, alternative pedestrian transportation pathway for the harbor waterfront boardwalk, cybersecurity improvements, legacies and public access improvements, Southwick lift station repair project, sewer lift station pump replacement, Seldovia volunteer, fire and investment, radio upgrade.
Hey, Heidi.
Yes.
Hey, real quick, we have Vivian, I'm sure you're going to say the same thing. We have a terrible connection here. Getting a bunch of garble. Is that what you guys are hearing too, John and Vivian?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm hearing that too.
Okay.
Is this better?
That's better. That's
Okay.
much better. Yeah, whatever you guys just did right there.
I just move the mic closer.
Well, there's still, yeah, go ahead and talk, but there's still a little, it's like a little bit of loop feedback or something. So, but go ahead.
Let me try one more. Let me try one more thing. Is this better?
It's definitely better. We can hear you clear. I just want to make sure the feedback doesn't come back.
Okay. So I'll just reiterate what I was saying previously. You'll see at the beginning of this packet, there is a table of contents, and I listed next to the items that are significantly updated or new in blue, updated or new next to them, just so we can call them out. Those won't be there in the final product for this discussion. It is valuable. And along with that, and I want to say that some of these other projects did have minor changes. I just didn't call them out for an update if they didn't have any significant updates. But we did discuss some of these projects already, and you can see that memo from the previous meeting on page 81. And I, to start, wasn't going to go into a significant amount of detail about these projects because we've already had a meeting about it. But you guys tell me where you want to go after this initial preview. But those new projects or updated projects we already discussed, I can list out again if you want. Starts with value added building, boat haul out, hydraulic trailer, Seldovia safe roads program, stormwater management plan and drainage next phase, historic boardwalk repair and improvement project, alternative pedestrian transportation pathway, harbor waterfront boardwalk, cybersecurity improvements, Lake Susan public access improvements, septic lift station repair project, SLU sewer lift station replacement project, Seldovia volunteer fire and EMS emergency radio upgrade. So we have had those discussions, and that doesn't mean we can't have them again. But I wanted to point out, at least in the beginning of this discussion, that there are, again, some additions Since our last discussion, one of the things mentioned on, or that I haven't included in the packet, one of the things that was mentioned in that memo was that housing hasn't been a consideration. There is a, but it's been something we've discussed. There is a grant opportunity that comes around annually through the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation called the Rural Professional Housing Development Grant or Help Program. And it is for entities to apply for funding to either retrofit or build new facilities to house a variation of 3 professions, and that's medical professionals or health professionals, public safety professionals like BPSOs, and teachers. And this is something that keeps coming up over and over again and has come up recently in discussion with staff at the school and with the district, and the realization that we're going to have a full turnover of teachers once again next year, as well as something that came up when Michael Nemeth with APIA, when he was here talking about the future of VPSO placement in Seldovia and the potential that we could have some turnover in that position in the future, and that there are individuals who want to be here, but housing, of course, is an issue, can be an issue. And having dedicated housing is a big incentive for both professions to bring them into the community. So if you want, I'll just start going through these projects, but pointing out that that one is new. And everything else has been fairly discussed, but recently updated. Another big one that's updated is this first one. If you want to turn with me to the fuel retail energy improvement project, and in energy improvements, fuel retail and distribution facilities, that's on page 8. This is for the Seldovia Fuel and Lube. Previously, we were looking at just having the roof repairs, but after having discussion with Fuel and Lube, and we talked about this briefly in this last council meeting during the CDBG discussion, there are certainly some more thermal envelope enhancements that the building could desperately use or that would benefit the use of the building, including not only replacing the roof, but replacing the paneling on the building, which has some spots that are pretty thin and going to see daylight soon. Other things that could improve that thermal envelope are replacing the windows, replacing the bay door, improving, well, it's not necessarily an improvement to the thermal envelope, but something that they desire is improving the plumbing. They would like a new sewer service line, so a secondary line, and then improving the electrical system in there, which has been a hodgepodge since the building was installed. It just sounds like there's been more wires applied on more wires, and they are seeing issues with the electrical load that's currently happening in that building. So that is something new. And I guess if you guys want to make a comment on that, it is still prioritized at a level 1, and then we can kind of just go through the projects, spending some time on more time on some of the newer ones or as needed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. All right, we'll go ahead and open it up for just general comments and discussion. What are you guys' thoughts on this project here that's slated as a priority level 1?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, well, this is definitely the infrastructure that the city supports. And we know that it needs work. It needs a lot of attention. I would definitely continue that at a priority level 1. And I guess this whole process we're doing right now is looking at our budget and how it can support projects that we currently have intact are versus new projects. And my head's really weighing heavily on trying to maintain what we have and get it up to par. This has got a pretty big dollar amount on it, $698,000. Again, what our portion would be. I'm not sure if you targeted that in another piece, Heidi, or not, but what our contributing factor would be. But I mean, it's our infrastructure and it needs to work, and we've been not able to do much to it over the years. So it's one of those have to be done at some point or another. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Vivian. Anyone else with thoughts on fuel retail distribution facility?
Mayor Campbell,
Yeah, go ahead, John.
that was the question I had. I guess I missed something. I wasn't sure which subject we were talking about, and I just found out it's the fuel retail. You know, I guess I have the same stuff Vivian has. You know, what kind of funds do we have to match? And you know, unfortunately we're gonna have to do something with that building, but at the same time, we have some other pretty big priorities to me, and that would be the lift stations. You know, those are a big deal for everybody in town, and so you know, I don't know. You know, I guess it just depends on the final end of the amount, you know.
It's pretty tasty. I like mine.
Yeah, and everyone's got to keep in mind too, the way, I mean, we're talking about the CIP plan, right? I mean, it's a number, it's all the projects we've got. We had agreed when we first did this plan, it's broke out into a number of these different, you know, this is a facility project, and then we've got our rolling stock, our surface transportation, and all of that. So they're all going to be on there. They're all going to be, you know, basically it's us identifying the need, right? That's the big coming up with the priority. And then, yeah, it may take 2 years, it may take 20 years to get funding on some of these. Obviously, some of these, if we have an immediate emergency need like we had with this building when we had the leaking roof and we had to spend some dollars to get up there and replace the panels and stuff, that, I mean, that just is what it is. That's our responsibility as a landlord to make sure that we're doing that. This type of infrastructure improvement is going to be a capital improvement plan. And yeah, we're going to need additional funding on stuff like that. So,
right. And that's what I'm getting at. I don't think we can afford to not put it on the list and to be looking for those dollars when they're available, so that we don't get hung with it down the road out of our pockets.
Yeah, no, much agreed. I agree with you guys. I mean, I think this building, yeah, I mean, it just kind of has always been, and not a lot of love put back into it because, yeah, we just the city has obviously had other competing priorities over the years. So, but I think it needs to be on here. We continue to search for the correct funding mechanism to try to get some work done on this thing. I would agree. I mean, our fuel retail in distribution, I mean, it's the only one we have in the community. And obviously that if something catastrophic were to happen and we couldn't dispense fuel, that would be a major deal. So we can't afford to have something like that happen, you know, that's not planned for. So.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. Those were excellent points. And I would like to point out two more additional things. One, yes, this is kind of a wish list, a plan we're working towards. We're not going to have all the funding answers for any of these projects. There are opportunities for funding for these projects. For instance, this one, you know, there's the CDBG. We can ask for state and federal capital requests. The REVEAT program comes around pretty regularly. That's the one that we are doing similar improvements on the city office right now with, and actually increasing that thermal envelope need helps, even though it's a bigger dollar amount and it's certainly necessary improvements for the building. It helps paint that picture of how we're going to improve the energy use in that space. Secondly, I would like to say, you commented on budget to fix the roof. And as of this spring, I believe I mentioned this before, but probably not loudly enough, it is leaking again. So they have buckets under their roof they are emptying out regularly because as we patch and repair the roof, more areas spring leaks. And right now, all the rivets, all the old screws, anything that's older that's connecting the paneling on top of the roof is leaking at the seams. And that's why when staff took a look at it and reevaluated the situation, it's felt that just repairing the roof is not going to do enough and we need to replace it. So I would say that it is a pressing issue. And I had a great discussion with them about the other needs for this building. And again, that's when they explained how frequently that they are emptying those buckets, especially in a big rain. And if they forget to, then it's leaking through to the floor or leaking through the roof of the inside building and leaking through in the warehouse. And it's a lot of extra work, not a lot, but it's extra work, manpower, awareness for them to be able to maintain that facility and making sure that they're emptying buckets. Just want to point that out.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think, given your comments, I think, all or most of us would agree this building definitely needs some attention here in the very near future. And if there's an appropriate funding mechanism to get this taken care of, then we need to certainly consider that. Obviously, as we're going through this, we want to, we do have, other competing priorities, as I mentioned, that may be seeking some of the same exact funding mechanisms. And that's where, unfortunately, it's up to us to weigh the critical need. Say if we had a lift, a lift. I mean, I know we've got funding identified now for lift stations and sewer systems and stuff. We're starting to get there, but if those are competing with for the same exact dollars from the same funding source, then that puts us in a predicament. Especially if on any given year. So luckily, some of the funding mechanisms are spread out, different sources, and that puts us in a little better position. So, all right. Any more comments on the fuel retail and distribution facility?
Yes, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
I would like to see this seen as two pieces. I think what we need to do is have a priority piece of the things that need to be done to the building with whatever type of grant we could get, even if we have to have some budgeted matching funds to get it now, like the leaking of the roof, and then have the other kind of the wish list from Josh and Marcia on which I can speak, and I could be corrected, but some of that when you're going into I'm not so much sure with the plumbing, but I know on the electrical side, that is more for expansion. The reason they're having issues is because they are doing more in there, which is great. We want to support that. But if it's going to cost, if we have to find funds to match or pull out of our budget for those improvements, because we are not going to be getting more rent out of that or more revenue in the fund that we're struggling to actually balance currently. I think it would be in our best interest as a good landlord and for wanting to encourage what they're doing for the community. We like that they're trying to build it, is keep seeking out that if there is grants that we can get for those other parts of the project of allowing that space to expand to be more, have more capacity for space inside for seating, for to upgrade the electrical panel, because it does need that right now. Everything that was being plugged in is too much for it because it's just more than it's been before. That we can do that, but not to where we will have to pull funds from something else in the city.
Through the mayor, can I provide a comment on that?
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, Councilmember Keithley. Excellent feedback. That was actually going to be one of my recommendations, especially during the CDBG conversation, is that we can break this out into phases. like you mentioned, the plumbing is something that they desire. And so it could be listed even on here as optional. And we had that discussion that I had that discussion with the leases that if it improves the project and we can include it, then that's fine. However, in normal circumstances, if somebody wants a new sewer, that is the property owner or leasee's
Correct.
responsibility,
Yeah, 'cause-
just like, and I want everybody to hold on to the fact that any cosmetic or any improvements that are not structural. So when they talk about expansion, any of those things that they want, they know that that is their responsibility.
Okay.
But the roof, the walls, the electrical, to an extent, if we're
Yes.
talking about a rewire, if they just want to upgrade what they have now, that's fine. That would be on them. But when we talk roof, walls, and a whole building rewire, that is on city. So we
Okay.
could even just split it into those three phases. And then as we look at funding, depending on what the match requirement is, some of them don't require much of a match and we could go for all three. But if they do, then just going for one or two phases, depending on availability of funds. Does that work?
That does. I like that. And because it keeps the opportunity that if we have the ability to help with some of those projects that usually in a normal circumstance would be more on them, but we can, include it and we're not having to put anything else money wise forward to it, because I think it does come back into our community because like Jeremiah said, we all use that. It is our only space, and the nicer it can be, the more we like to go there. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ashley, for pointing that out. Yeah, I think that makes perfectly good sense. Any objections from anyone on council about getting this, getting the wish list and the needs, the pressing needs, life safety, structural, et cetera, split out so that we can definitely pin down or refine our funding sources on that one?
I think it's a great idea to break it up. So yeah, thank you.
No issues for me.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, Heidi, if you're good with that, let's proceed in that direction with the fuel retail and distribution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, and so if we move on to the next page, and I would like to point out that if you see under the total project cost, there are some funding options listed. On this one, we have the CDBG as a potential one, state share, city share, and then a schedule if we wanted to go for the CDBG. Not saying we have to, but that's just an example of what that schedule would look like. If you go on to the next page, the emergency response heavy equipment staging complex, not a lot has been updated or changed about this one. So I won't spend a lot of time on it unless you guys have input you want to provide. It's still listed as a priority level 2. One thing that did change is that we put in here the total project cost, and we're still working on those numbers. And that includes land acquisition at this point. I'm hoping to have a better, as we are finishing the grant for the community change, or the budget narrative for the community change grant, we'll have better figures. And so I did include that's something that we're looking at that would be part of the FFY 25 community change grant. And you'll see on that schedule what that looks like: applying in November, grant award in April, RFP May, June, July, so on and so forth. So unless there's any immediate feedback on that one, that's really the only change, is that we are looking to include it right now as part of this community change grant as one of 6 components.
Yeah, appreciate the updates on that, Heidi. Anyone with any additional thoughts, comments on the staging complex? Okay, sounds good. All right, what's next, Heidi?
Okay, moving on, multi-purpose building. Again, this is one that was already in the CIP from previous years. That total project cost is going to change. It hasn't yet. This is still information from a couple of meetings ago, but at the last council meeting, it was requested that I revisit the figures for both the Seldovia Fuel and Lube and the multipurpose building. I did. They're similar, but we added in some contingencies, some administration, and those are in the packet. So that number will change, but everything else remains the same, and it's still listed as a priority level 2, due to it not being as much of a pressing need as, for instance, the fuel and lube roof.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right. Any comments, questions on the multipurpose building? Energy improvements.
Okay, if there's nothing on that, multipurpose building transfer switch is new in that we pulled it out from the overall multipurpose building project because that might take a while to be able to find and receive funding for. And this one may be a little bit more of a pressing need, though it's not critical. It's just, it would be beneficial, certainly in an emergency or power outage, to upgrade that switch. And it does not have a priority level because it's new. So looking for feedback on that.
Okay, and this, I was reading through this. So this is something that has, so have they been doing the manual transfer for a while, or is this something that's just come about in the last year or two, or what's the gist on that?
For a long while. This has been on the wish list for, I don't know, probably at least 6 or 7 years.
Okay, for that okay, for that exact problem. Okay. Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea that this is broken out, and then you had also talked about splitting the two parts out. One was to fix the start actuator, then the second was to evaluate the capacity and find out if we can add more circuits. Seemed to me that you just do this in one little project and get it done. I mean, or not, I guess you could. I mean, to me, the priority is fixing the start actuator, right? And making it so that we can get the ATS working to where it'll actually start on its own in the event of a power outage.
PJ. To this day, he was PJ when you were there.
So we could take out the performing it or breaking it down into 2 phases and just have it as a single project.
Well, I mean, I guess thinking through this, maybe it does make sense to just leave it. I mean, it's probably not going to be a large, I mean, it's certainly not going to be a large cost, but yeah, I mean, to me, it almost seems like this is the type of project where it's just maintenance, right? I mean, I know it's not cheap, but it would seem like this is the exact type of project in the city where we should just go in and get it fixed, identify a funding source and get it fixed if it's something that it's that important. I mean, I think this should be a priority level 1 or 2. Certainly if there's an emergency or something, it would definitely be nice to have that building lit up prior to, waiting on someone to come in and turn the switch on.
And there's Pineshi standing.
Go ahead, John.
Hey, what am I missing here? Isn't that building powered with the HEA emergency generators like the rest of us?
I'm sure he must have talked.
It is.
Like, I'm very sorry.
So,
he was just on the
that generation, I guess I just don't understand the dire need for it. Then, I kind of agree with the, getting it fixed because the infrastructure is already there. But at the same time, I know the 5 years I've been there, now that they've got those transfer switches fixed on the HEA stuff, I just wonder where it's at on our priority list. I don't want to be a doubting Thomas here. I just didn't understand the whole thing, I think,
Well, it's ironic that you're gone because we just had this issue with half the town without power here last week. because of that
So we were
exact
the-
issue, right? The generator came on like it was supposed to, but because where the break was and the backfeed, Heidi could probably explain a little more eloquently, but this is the second or third time since we've been there when the town has been split with the ability to provide power. And in
Okay.
this case, if that building were in the unlucky group, then at least they would have power.
Okay, I just was missing the whole, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
Just missing it. So.
Yeah, no, I got you.
So we were without power last week there, you're saying?
Yep, during the one storm, I forget the exact day on it, and part of the town had power, and then the other part did not have power until HEA could come over the following day, after the winds had died
Okay.
down.
Okay, and I'm assuming that my building was in that then.
Yeah, I don't know which half. I know I was without power.
Oh,
So
okay.
all my buildings were without power.
Okay, thanks for trying to answer that for me.
Yeah.
Thank you. And through the mayor, I'd like to point out that the generator is essential for powering the fire hall bay doors. So, which it does do right now manually, but this would just improve that.
Okay, well, that's kind of some of this background I'm just trying to be familiar with, that's all. Thank you.
So Heidi, then you'd be looking for a priority level on this one. Obviously, we can either, we'll split it out on here. We can identify funding, whether it's through a grant or if we just, come up with the dollars to do it. Priority level, I mean, my opinion is probably should be a 1. I'd look for, other council members to weigh in too on what they think.
I agree. I think it should be a 1 as well.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would agree. And the point that Heidi brought up about the man doors for the fire and EMS, vitally important that those doors can be opened easily. So yeah, a priority would be good.
Okay.
Yeah, no issues for me either. Thank you.
Okay. Sounds good. Heidi, you good with that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I put it at a priority level 1 and I put in the schedule FY25 determined budget for FY26 or FY27. And that's something that we can look at in future budget discussions if there's funding available where we can squeeze that in.
Okay.
Unless something else funding wise comes up in the meantime. That's the beauty of this document is that having these projects identified opens the door, when there are doors that are open, we are able to plug and play.
Yeah, just thinking out loud here too, for me, thinking like if we had a surplus, which we will in our police budget, this is the exact type of trade-off for me that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's fire and EMS related, simple deal. So, but we'll discuss that here in the near future when the budget process starts again.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving to the next project, City Office Energy Improvements Project. It is updated just to include that we have received funding. We received $104,600 from the REVEEP program. Our share is $10,800, and that's in kind. So labor, storage, whatever work we're helping, and we are planning on doing some of this work in-house. You'll see the funding breakdown is included. That includes the new overhead door, spray foam insulation, the new man doors, new thermal windows, heat registers, and thermostats. So that project we're already going out for quotes for the overhead door and have actually come significantly under budget so far, which is fantastic. And that includes installation. And then here in January, I think it says on our schedule, we will put out an RFP seeking that somebody to come in and do the spray foam insulation for us later on in the spring. So.
Okay, that's exciting.
Yep.
Good.
Moving on to the next project. And stop me if anybody had a comment on it, but I'll just kind of keep moving through. Enhancing Seldovia's value added building and waterfront lot, we discussed last time. Nothing's changed since that discussion, except I do have a estimated total project cost. And this is just like the heavy equipment storage complex in that there's some scheduling and cost changes due to the fact that it's in the process, a grant is in the process of being written for this building. So nothing on that one. We'll move to the next page. And this is a new one, does not have a priority level, and it doesn't need to be included if this isn't a need at this time. It's just something after seeing this grant opportunity and hearing from the school and hearing from the VPSO program and the countless discussions we've had about housing and what our needs are in this community. It's a good opportunity and it's something that we could work towards. If we have it in here, you know, and the initial steps would be planning a planning project and looking at and holding work sessions on, is this going to be city land that we already have? Are we going to be asking for funding to acquire land? Are we wanting to purchase and renovate existing buildings or build new? We don't have to have that tonight. This is just the initial idea. And then if it's something that's supported by the council, we can start those discussions moving forward.
Okay, any initial thoughts, comments from council on this concept?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I think the concept is good, housing development idea. I think there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be discussed first. So my question is, putting it on our wish list and prioritizing in some manner is just moving it forward. All the work will come up later, and then it may decide that this is not going to work for us, or it will, as far as maintenance and who's going to take care of the building and the more additional pressure on the city. All of those discussions would happen as we're discussing this item just being on our wish list. Is that correct? Or do we need to do the groundwork of deciding if we can afford it? Can we support it before?
I would, Heidi, you can chime in, but I would think that we would, leave it in concept and then continue to work towards a document or a plan if the council and, you know, community administration, everyone's in agreement that it's the right way to go. I mean, there's certainly going to probably be some opposition to this and many questions that will come up along the way. But yeah, I think this is probably going to end up having, this in itself could have a number of work sessions behind it to work through some details.
Right. Okay, good. I agree. Yeah, I think it's a good concept to put forward for the community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Heidi, is that accurate, or what did you want an opportunity to respond to that?
Mr. Mayor, I think you responded perfectly. This is just, it's so that we know that it could be a potential focus that we can work towards in the future. And if, of course, at any time, any of these projects council does not want to pursue, we can amend and take out or take it out in the next one. And while there are some things that happen in the background, if there's a grants that we can apply as administration, a lot of these things are going to come to you guys first before we even apply for anything, and certainly before we accept any awards. So we keep you guys apprised every step of the way. This just leaves the door open that if we do see like a planning grant that would help us to work through and do a feasibility study and develop this concept, we can do that. Is really what this is doing, is it's saying, hey, if there's funding out there for planning and feasibility, let's look at it.
Yeah, and again, just to reiterate, that's the whole purpose of the CIP, right? Is to show the rest of the state, any of our potential funding sources that, hey, we have considered this, we've discussed it, and we do have a plan in our city. And this plan, this element of our CIP has been discussed and thoroughly vetted, and it's something that we feel we want within the city. So yeah, exactly. This is good that we start the process, and go through it, and then we have something that's actually legit if a funding opportunity comes up. You guys know as well as I do that we have jumped quickly at opportunities before just because the funding showed up, and we really never had a chance to fully vet some of these things. I think for the most part they work out okay, but there's been a few that are probably maybe a little buyer's remorse on a couple of them in the past. But Heidi, one thing too, I would just chew on this, but anytime I see, and I've said this before, anytime I see the word by providing affordable, to me that says subsidized, but I'll leave it at that. I don't know what affordable means, but that would be one of my points of contention or points of discussion that I would want to discuss in the future when we start talking about this. Certainly I agree with the concept, but lots of discussion from everyone would have to take place before we saw a fully developed project concept getting rolled out and identified as a priority in my mind. So all right,
Mr.
any
Mayor,
other
if I-
thoughts, comments before we move on?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
I've been a part of a lot of discussions about kind of this concept, and I know exactly where you're coming from on some pushbacks and things that we could have. And it's been brought up that the city basically becoming more of a landlord again and providing housing and becoming part of that competitive market. So I think this is a great thing to have on here to bring up the discussion, because the reason that it's gotten to here and that it's on our minds is because there is a need right now. And so even if this helps us start to have some public discussion on, and I'm going to say it specifically, I mean, as we heard, the VPSO program wants to know if there's a plan to make sure that there's places, if we have turnover in the future, for them to live, so that that doesn't become hindering in us not having that public safety officer. But especially with our teachers, it's been a huge feedback that we've been getting, and it's not it's becoming more of a norm. The teachers are used to having in places like Seldovia somewhere housing provided for them. And so that's been voiced to us. That's part of why we're not getting the teachers, is that when they hear that, then they're like, oh, but this could also open up, because from others in the community, they've said, well, there is housing. So it might open up that discussion of how we can help facilitate that if it's there, and then, or we can find out it's really not, or not feasible, and then address, move forward with this concept. And I also, when I was going through, the reason I like to have it on here is it's not just, at least the vision on here is not just for that housing, but the idea of mixed use, because that to me then makes it less of a risky thing, that it can have other uses happening. So you're not just relying on, oh, the city is going to have this grant, we're going to build this building, and it's going to be there if teachers, healthcare providers, and public safety officers need housing. And if none need it, then nothing can happen there. The fact that it says mixed use and commercial spaces potential, I like that. So I think it's great to have, so that we can get that discussion moving forward.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. One other comment on that too, and I think we did talk about it a little bit. That would be another concept for the housing. The housing concept is a public-private partnership for the development piece of that. That might even be something that's a little more appropriate, because we've got the land, but maybe it's it's some sort of joint venture with a developer coming in and doing something to do that and manage it, and we accomplish the same thing, and our donation, if you will, or our piece of that is the land, whether that's through sale, or, we get some piece of that back, or, whatever it is, but just, maybe throw that in your notes then, Heidi, too. You probably got it in there, but I know we've brought that concept up as well in the past.
Will do, Mr. Mayor. And I'm also hearing, so I'm gonna just push that schedule timeline back a year, just so there's more time. Not that this is something that we're held to anyways, but for what our focus is on time for the project. And then including in the project summary and benefit, we're gonna start off with this project being a planning project to determine feasibility. And just break it back a little bit so that we have that focus being on the initial just feasibility planning stage over the construct phase.
Yeah, I think the feasibility piece of that probably makes the most sense. You get a lot of good information on the front end of that long before you ever start talking about the actual construction piece of it.
Okay, so planning to determine feasibility and a low priority, is that what I'm hearing? 3 or 4? I'm assuming from what I'm
I
hearing.
think you could keep, the feasibility piece, you could keep that up there, probably a 2 or a 3, so that we can, slowly make some progress on it. Again, if you're not talking actual construction, you're talking feasibility, that's just that's just more meetings and time, right? And discussion to start getting that. And then, and or maybe pulling in a couple professionals at some point to help us out as well.
Okay, if there isn't anything else on that, Mr. Mayor, would you like me to move to the next project?
Yep, let's keep moving here.
Okay, we've got boat haul out hydraulic trailer upgrade initiative. We did already discuss this as a new project at a previous work session. It still remains the same, except we did have an inspection. It looks like we can potentially do this work in-house, or hire somebody, I should say, to repair the trailer versus buying a new trailer. There's still some life left in it, which is excellent news. Second piece of news, good news, is that in the MMRF, the Major Maintenance and Repair Fund, the highest pot of money, the revenue account with the most that's accrued in a Major Maintenance and Repair Fund is the boat haul out trailer. If I remember correctly is the boat haul out account. If I remember correctly off the top of my head, it is somewhere in the 90,000s. I don't think this is going to cost anywhere near that, but thinking that it is a priority, I'll leave it to you guys on what priority level it is, but certainly this could be something that we have discussion on in the near future, budget wise, and utilizing some of those major maintenance repair funds and getting this done.
Yeah, Heidi, I agree. I think this is another thing. It's just simple maintenance, right? And we figure it out if we've got the money to do it. And we can talk through, use it, fix it through the budget process, then great. If not, and we have to go outside for, to try to identify some outside funding, then so be it. But yeah, this is another one of those. And I think I don't know what the usage is on this trailer. I can't remember. I know we talked about it, but I think there's a number of folks that would utilize it, certainly when it's up and running. So yeah, to me, it seems fairly important that we get it, we get it up and fixed. And, we want to make sure that people know that our harbor and, our infrastructure, our boat haul out, yards, everything are a viable option for them. I looked at an aerial photo the other day. It is crazy when you look at Homer and the yards over there, how packed they are. It's absolutely insane. So, yep, I would agree with getting this fixed. Any other thoughts, comments from council?
Mayor Campbell,
Yep, go ahead, John.
I kind of feel the same way. I think we just need to figure out what it's going to take to fix it and make a decision. Unless it's some big deal. I mean, I realize the trailer usage is probably a little low, but at the same time, there's a lot of opportunity there for us to even take some of that from Homer, so there's plenty of storage and plenty of need for it anyway.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, Heidi, do you, are you guys working on with, I know you talked about, someone was taking a look at that, one of the, local vendors to work out some pricing or something with you on what a repair, bill would cost on that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, excellent question. We had Arc and Fire take a look at it because they're doing some other welding work for us, and have done past welding work for us. And like I said, they thought that there was still some life in it, so they'll be working on a quote for that. I would like to mention, because you pointed it out, that this trailer doesn't get a lot of use. There's only about 3 or 4 vessels that it's really needed for. However, what we're having now is that those vessels are going to Homer and not here, and we're not serving the people in our community. So Councilmember Kennedy, good point about being able to bring people from Homer here, and even just being able to serve the people here with our services.
Yep. All right, sounds good. What's next?
Next, backhoe replacement, not a lot updated in it. There is a project cost, total cost, and Councilmember Kennedy, don't panic yet, but that's the cost that we requested through the federal, the joint bundled congressional directed spending request through AML. So just putting that in there, that's what NC Machinery quoted us. That's quote we needed to be able to pass on for that request. We haven't heard back where that's at in process. Certainly, if this is something that we were doing another funding way, we could look at other value dollar amounts and values. But that's the current request for that.
Any thoughts, comments from council?
Okay, moving on to the next one. Skid steer remains the same. No updates on that one. And then next one, vacuum truck, super sucker, dry vac, remains the same. I would point out this is still a priority level 2. However, Councilmember Kennedy did point this out previously, that there's funding opportunities and that there's an importance for stormwater management maintenance that involves a vacuum truck, super sucker, dry vac with jetter. And in speaking with Tyler, with the state, it sounds like these stormwater drains have not been maintained with a super sucker and jetter in 8 years. So that is something I sent back to DOT, starting the discussion of, hey, if you guys have any surplus equipment or any plans, or this is something we're looking at, we need a more regular maintenance schedule on this infrastructure. How can we collaborate together to do this? Realizing that this vac truck is going to be a crucial or essential piece of equipment for that maintenance. So I don't know if we want to look at updating the priority level, but currently it's becoming more pressing, realizing that the status of our infrastructure and how little we're maintaining it, and how much, just like we've discussed, putting in that little bit of maintenance will help it go further.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I just got one question, Heidi. Do you know if the city of Homer has one of those vac trucks?
I do not.
So here's what I'm thinking. I know that there was a lot of money available in that stormwater fund for us before. I think we got 13 in one buy, and those trucks are pretty expensive. I would imagine they're 500,000 now, probably. But what I'm wondering, I'm looking at, our usage. I realize we could use it, but it's not going to be a high use item. I'm wondering if that's something that might benefit both communities, or maybe another smaller community. We could maybe, I don't know, just thinking, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, even
A
doing some
shared
sort of
ownership.
of joint agreement if, so Heidi, you said you
Yeah.
were not sure if they had one, right? Not that they did
Right.
not have one.
Right.
Right.
I'm not sure. And I think DOT, from what I heard from Tyler, only has one on the peninsula, he thought here.
Well, that would be about right, in my opinion, the one on the peninsula.
Yes. The
Yeah,
other
I think
needs
it's
we
just a
have,
matter of us getting on the list and starting to squawk a little louder about, so we've got an opportunity to get our maintenance done over here. And if it was going to make it over, whether it was the city of Homer or, the boroughs or the states, and then
Right.
finding some other opportunities while it was here to take care of business while, and one-stop shop here when it came over.
as long as we, I would just say, had a backup for, and which we do now, it doesn't work very well, but in case of sewer emergencies.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the other thing too is they do make you can buy the sewer vac trailers substantially cheaper, right? They're a tow behind. And so you're not maintaining a drivetrain and chassis and all that. It's a trailer and it's the exact same thing, and it's got a little Honda on it that you fire up and just starts the vacuum pump and all that. But yeah, we used Seward's got one. They've had them for years and years, and they had a couple of them that they used to, go around and sucking out lift stations and all kinds of different stuff. So, yeah, they use them for waste oil. They use them for sewer, all kinds of stuff. So that'd be another option, if we needed to look at something quite a bit less expensive, especially for as little use as we get out of it, but knowing that we need a backup.
Right, that might be something really good to look into, Mayor.
Yeah. Maybe in your travels, Heidi.
Yes,
when
that's
you're
on the
looking for
list.
trucks.
Okay, if there isn't anything else on that, I did include that on the list. Thank you, guys. We will move to surface transportation. So Seldovia Safe Roads Program, it was updated for the next, well, not necessarily the next phase, but it was updated to include the funding that we've received. That state share request of 88,000, and you'll see on Monday night's council meeting that the RFP that was put out for material has closed. And we'll have a bigger discussion on that. We're still waiting on this 22,000. I haven't had an update from the state. I pinged them just a little bit ago, and I'm hoping to hear back from them soon. But we're at least getting started on it. It remains at a priority level 1. Just the updates there are just what we're working on. And if there isn't anything on that one, we'll move on to stormwater management plan and drainage. This one is also updated. This one's to the next phase. We had a grant opportunity for the next phase funding through the Aqua program, who we received the initial funding for. And because we received initial funding, we were on the priority list for funding this next level. In it, we included the design for Vista Avenue, design and some implementation for Main Street. And I asked DOT, there's like 5 pieces with a DOT right now. And one of them being permission to replace and place a new inlet on Main Street. And then as well as the citywide basin study and new culverts and replacement culverts at Frank Raby and Vista, because that's our crew has identified that as a need. So I will make sure to include that. What I just said, it hasn't been included to date to this, but I'll include that those are the steps that we're working on the next phase. And then we'll continue working through the priority list as we can.
Sounds good.
Okay. And moving on to historic boardwalk. Did write this as updated because we separated it out. So it's still listed as a priority level 3. And it's relatively similar to what it was before, except I have the project cost. This was a estimate that was provided to us by a local contractor for $225,000. There's also an opportunity. Dr. Stranix made contacts. He has contacts through the Rasmussen Foundation, and they have interest in it. And there's quarterly requests for projects, and this project would fall under a legacy grant request for that $225,000. So that's something that we're hoping to pursue here in the near future, to complete those repairs. Does a priority level 3 for this infrastructure is it still applicable? I did take a recent walk with Dr. Stranick and our maintenance crew, and it does seem, the infrastructure is holding up. There is a retaining wall below that's kind of sloughing over, as well as some of the pilings that kind of start leaning. And then certainly this railing that's on the right side in the picture that you can't see from the picture, but the whole railing is leaning, and the bottom portions of the beams connected to the boardwalk are cracked. So there are some repairs that it needs in the near future. We can keep band-aiding it and maintaining it as we go, but it would be nice to have this addressed, sometime down the road, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Heidi, I think moving this up probably to a priority level 2, especially knowing that, we see it's aging, and yeah, not a lot has been, has put into it other than Band-Aids, and we know it's coming, and the same thing. I'd hate to get to the point where we have to shut it down, because it's broke. So I think we do need to, especially if there are funding opportunities for a project like this. I think we put it up one, and then that way we know if there is a funding opportunity, and then we can at least talk about it if you guys are, limited on time, or if it's competing with other projects. Any thoughts, other comments from council on that?
Mayor Campbell,
Yep, go ahead.
that was my thoughts exactly. It needs to be moved up, and at least for the feasibility of it, and to chase the funds.
Okay.
I agree, Mr. Mayor. Putting it up to level 2 would be good. And then hopefully get some funding to actually accomplish it would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. Heidi, you good with that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
So moving on to the next project, if there isn't anything further on that one, this one is stated as an updated, but it's somewhat new in that it's its own standalone project for the Harbor Waterfront Boardwalk. So it doesn't have a priority level at this point, and I forgot to include, so I made a note of it for the next draft to include that this is also part of the community change grant as one of the 6 components. So I'll make that update to it. But it could use a priority level, and it's its own project now.
Okay, so what does this one exactly do here, just in a nutshell?
So this one would build the boardwalk along the harbor waterfront.
Okay.
And it's one we talked about making it smaller, and it still states in there by connecting the Seldovia Gateway Pavilion to Jack English Lollipop Park. However, our former council member Swick did point out or request that we still look at trying to complete the entirety of the boardwalk if we're doing the work. That change hasn't happened in this draft. We could put it in there as an option to have phases if needed, but the desire is for the entirety of the boardwalk to be completed. That's certainly another discussion item for the council as well. And in the community change grant, it is for the entirety of the boardwalk, and includes the fact that we need 9 easements.
Gotcha. Okay. So it would, yeah, as part of yeah, obviously there's a lot of work that would have to happen but this is a necessary piece for part of that community change grant.
Yes, this is our part of our pollution strategy, and that we are reducing vehicle traffic and encouraging pedestrian traffic.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, well, this is a great dream for the future. As far as a priority level, I mean, 3 or 4 to me. This is going to take a lot of input from the community and for the city to think about, realize the impact that it would be on the city infrastructure or the city maintenance crew and what it means in the future. To me, it's on our list. It's something to revisit and go through and sort out. But to me, it's not, it'd be a lovely thing to happen, but we've got so much else going that is on a need basis that this is more of a wish list to me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Yeah, I mean, I think leaving it at you've got it as a 4 right now, Heidi, is that, I mean, that would seem appropriate to, I know it's something that if the rest of the pieces fell into place and, working through that document, obviously, yeah, that would be a pretty big undertaking there. But yeah, I would agree with Vivian on that, probably leaving it as the lower priority piece.
Okay, if there isn't anything else on that, the next one, and this one had a little bit of discussion back and forth during the last CIP about whether it should be in here or not. It's the Spillum and Malcolm subdivision platted road development project. So it hasn't changed. It still sits there as an idea to be able to develop. And this was the initial thought process was to be able to promote housing development in that subdivision. And it sits at a priority level 4. So if this is still applicable to council, if we still want to keep it in there as an idea to encourage that growth, and if priority level 4 still suits, is what we're asking.
Yeah. Hey, Heidi, just for the record here, I got screwed up here too, looking at these here. Yeah, I don't know how, somehow I missed when I was going through here. Yeah, okay, I see what's going on now. Something wasn't making sense to me. So I thought we were on that Spillum and Malcolm subdivision platted right-of-way development project when we were discussing the previous one, the boardwalk.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm not sure what happened here, but yeah, I know the Spillman and Malcolm one. Yeah, that one was a priority level 4. Yeah, I mean, I think that one is fine. Going. Sorry about that. We're whipping through these here.
No worries. So if there isn't anything else on that one, move on. Cybersecurity improvements is a new one and was discussed at the last work session pertaining to the CIP as a new project. It does not have a priority level yet. There, is funding out here to make these enhancements. It is a pretty big priority nationwide. So looking for that feedback from the council. It's certainly something we want to continue to improve in-house at the city.
Any thoughts, comments from council on this one?
Mayor Campbell,
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I missed that. What's she looking for?
On the cybersecurity improvements.
And that's under which?
Page 32,
Oh, okay.
under quality of life.
Okay.
And just looking for a priority level or any feedback on it. Certainly, these are things that we're hoping to move through to enhance internet security and establish some of these policies, implement these physical security measures. One thing that was pointed out in our risk assessment is that we need to have more physical limitations and barriers for our sensitive equipment. For instance, our server being in an access point in the building where people are walking by is not recommended. So looking at how we can move that, what we need to do to secure it more, and some smaller things that we can do in-house, as well as there's some funding opportunities for maybe some of the bigger pieces, like if we needed to build something to secure that in the building. Nothing super significant, but they're all, it all adds up.
Mayor Campbell,
Yeah, go ahead, John.
my thought is 2 or 3.
Yeah, I would say it too myself. I mean, because this is kind of overall cybersecurity enhancements, and we've seen a number of, communities right now with all of the crazy security breaches, the amount of fraud, everything. I mean, I think this is all wrapped up into one, basically, not just the physical barriers, but if there's an opportunity to, come up with any funding source for improvements. I mean, yeah, if we got hacked and, or got a bug, that would not be good at all. If it did, get in and start taking down our systems within the city. So yeah, I definitely think this needs to be at least a 2, and it needs to be, in this day and age, you can't be too careful with cybersecurity.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
I would agree. I would agree that it needs to be at least a 2. And especially if it's the staff, they are given their recommendations for this. Is there any price tag at all, Heidi, that you know of?
Not yet. That's something that we need to continue moving through. So having it in here is helpful because we won't lose track of it.
Right, perfect. Yeah, no, I'm definitely in favor of it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it should be a level 2. And I think this is actually a project to be kind of looked at differently than a lot of the other ones in here. And the fact that part of having it as a 2 is just to know that it's on everybody's forefront. Because my philosophy nowadays is it's with fraud and being hacked. It's not if, it's when. And so it's being aware, because it's gonna, as we all know, if you've never been affected at all, wow, you're winning the lotto. Like, it's gonna happen, but being aware and ready and having even steps in process so that when something happens, and there's a lot of that you can, like you guys said, do in-house with just like policies and things that aren't going to cost money, but you can work on. And then I think, as far as when we're talking, like Vivian asked, what would costs be? I think that's going to come up when you guys see those opportunities, because a lot of that, I don't think we know what that is. And it's going to be new software or opportunities of somebody coming in and doing new assessments, because things are changing all the time. But I think it's great having it on here as we're thinking about it, we're actively doing the little things that we can in-house. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Yep, totally agree on all those comments. Heidi, you good with that? Number 2?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're moving on. If there's anything else onto that one, Lake Susan public access improvements is updated. So this was in there before. We did update it, and this is also part of the community change grant as part of the pollution strategy and climate change strategy. And I did update it below, but I should at the top that it would be either aluminum or wooden boardwalk, depending on engineering, to improve accessibility to the city of Seldovia's Lake Susan Pavilion. Some of the other things that we talked about at the last meeting was that, in addition to the boardwalk installation, having better maintenance of the alders around the lake, is desired to enhance the natural beauty, and as well as a potential backup location for the Sursa Community Ice Skating Rink. And I'm looking for council input on this second phase, which is the last paragraph, and that is included in the community change grant at this point in time, is to continue that boardwalk along the wetlands that the city owns. That's from the Young Street, the corner of Young Street and Anderson, up behind the city yard to the corner of Shoreline. So that is included in here. That might not be the right place for it, but as a placeholder at this point, looking for feedback, that's where it's at, and on the overall project.
Yeah, we'll go ahead. Any comments, questions from council, thoughts? I've got a couple, Heidi. Yeah, I definitely, the more and more I think about this one's starting to irritate me, that in a way that I just know how overgrown all this is. And if I had my way, I'd go in there with a chainsaw and I would whack the whole thing down on a weekend, all of it, and get it all opened up, get rid of all the alders, whack the brush, everything, and get it back to where it used to be years ago before it just became so overgrown. I think this one's a community effort. I mean, I would like to see that priority level go up to a 2 or 3. I would love to see the boardwalk continued through there. I think this is a hidden gem. It would be amazing if people could walk down there and continue on and just connect over and keep on going, or people going down and having another place to sit and have a picnic, enjoy the Susan Lake and or the birds and any other little wildlife in that area. It is a beautiful spot. I totally agree that it should be maintained as pedestrian only through there, and we've talked about all that. So, but yeah, I'd like to see this at least move up at least one priority level myself going forward, and then just again, I think through community activism and if we get some folks together, I think we can get out there in a couple productive weekends and really make a substantial change, and then continue to work on the funding for the boardwalk piece of it.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I would agree to move it up to a 3 or possibly a 2. And I like the idea that it's put in a couple of different phases. And I think the alder cutting party could happen, chainsaw it out, flag it, mark it, so a group of people can go out there and just start that part, getting the alders taken down. And we did have a wonderful employee this summer working for the city who did road clearing, and I'm not sure if this could be part of her job next summer, if not volunteers, a group of people helping. But yeah, I agree. It's a gem. It's a gem that visitors could come and walk along and go through the marsh and end up over on Shoreline. That'd be great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Well, once we got access to it, then we can discuss the lily pads again and get that nice, robust discussion going again too.
Okay,
All
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
If there isn't anything else on that, and excellent idea for a work party. It could even be something that we include in our project week, which started off this last year and has some pretty good potential to continue on. There's already some other project ideas that have been discussed. So maybe we include it and then have our pizza party or whatever appreciation for project week at the pavilion to bring awareness. That's
Sounds great.
if we go to the next project, Seldovia Wilderness RV Park, this is updated. It was just a really short paragraph like you'll see on the following page of projects. This has been expanded after discussion with members of the chamber. and looking at some of the historical documents for the initial vision of the SHARE project, which is the Seldovia Hall of Arts, Recreation, and Education. We've kind of switched that vision to the waterfront project, but really there was some other phases included, which were to install electric out there and to have some additional park amenities. So you'll see that there's more history involved. And then the next phase will focus on completing the originally envisioned upgrades, including installing underground power, extending water service to all campsites with a new well drilled, and constructing a picnic shelter adjacent to the play field. The pump house will be built to protect the well. There's one up there now, but there's a pump house, I believe, but there's not a well. So we'll have to look at that a little bit further. And just kind of moving this, we've heard the desire from community and council to have that electric upgrade, to look at improvements. So utilizing that jumping point that they had back in 2011 and focusing on those few items to start, listed in here as a priority level 4, which is where it was before, just now expanded.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Thoughts, comments from council?
Yeah, I think keeping it at a level 4 is perfect, but having the updates so that it's on the back of our mind. Because even when I know like people have wanted to come out and utilize the RV park, those are always some of the first questions is, electricity and water, and not that they need it, but that is something that gets brought up, and it gives the ability for more usage too of events and things when people want to have them out there. Was parking part of that? Because I think that was something we had talked about, that if there were going to be more people, or like if when people have events, that's been an issue in the past, that there's not a lot of parking space. And so trying to figure out what that looks like so that we're not creating a space to be used more that can't facilitate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Heidi, did you have any response on that, or?
Parking was something that we discussed, but you're right, it was missed in this concept. So I will make sure to update and include that. That's something that we should take a look at and make a plan for.
I have one initial comment too. I think, yeah, the electrical piece would certainly probably be the easiest piece out of all of the, between water, sewer, and power. Power would definitely be the easiest piece. We've got power, that comes right over the top of that whole thing out there. So the initial line power is close. All that shallow trenching, etc. Whereas the well water lines, and sewer lines, that's all definitely going to be a lot more costly and a lot more complicated. So if there was ever an idea or an option to identify the electrical piece of that as a priority, I think that would, that's something that we could definitely accomplish way less expensive than the other two. Just a thought on that.
I can include that as a priority. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
If there's anything else on that, the next page, these have not changed. Priority levels remain the same as last year. That's the 10-year collaborative economic strategy plan, comprehensive plan, and zoning code update. I know we've had some discussions over this over the last year, so I don't know if that priority level changes. And then water and sewer utility system mapping.
Yeah, any thoughts, comments from council on any either of these three?
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yeah.
I think I'd like to see the zoning code update and review to a level 2 if there was an opportunity, that kind of pushes it, that if there's an opportunity that presents itself, or showing that if the time or whatever it is that we need to work on that, because I feel like as a whole, as you mentioned, it was brought up and it is a higher priority for us, even if we haven't voiced it specifically here yet. And it will help with a lot of the other projects in the future and planning so that everything makes sense and is cohesive.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Ashley. Yeah, I was gonna chime in on that one too. I agree with you. I think that does need to come up to a 2. I know we've been, slowly whittling away on on some of these, but we need to continue to work through the zoning issues. And then obviously our 2014 comprehensive plan is already 10 years old now, and that's going to come back around here. And we need to have more discussion on that plan, because obviously there's a big debate on, what the plan recommendations mean. And then there was, plenty of questions of what does it really mean, and how do we actually do some things that were the wishes of the people at that time. So I think there will be a lot more discussion around that, when we do actually have focused conversations on the comprehensive plan, and then continue to work through zoning. So I agree. I think priority level 2 is appropriate to slowly start getting that up the list. Any objections from anyone on council to move that to level 2?
None from me, Mayor Campbell.
Okay. Good with that, Heidi?
That sounds great.
Okay.
So if we're moving on, then the next phase remains relatively the same. And if you look at page 36, this is our special revenue fund capital project priorities. And they're listed out on this cover page for this section. Jackloff Bay Dock, of course, has been updated due to recent activity on it, which is fantastic. And then we have included the septic lift station repair project, as well as the slough lift station pump replacement project. So those ones need a priority level identified. However, the rest of the projects remain kind of status quo, knowing that we are working through our water capital projects and our wastewater capital projects pretty steadily. So while the project descriptions remain fairly similar or the same, we know that raw water transmission line is making progress. It has funding. We're hoping to have that secured this winter, and then to be able to put out an RFP in the spring to get that project complete. The airport, well, all of the next, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 projects for water, all the way, not including Frank Raby, but all the rest above it. Nope, sorry, not including Spillum. So 5 projects. Winifred to airport are all included in a planning project, an overall planning project with VSW that we've signed the cooperative agreement for and should be going out to RFP. If we look at wastewater, we will jump to the septic lift station and slough lift station projects here in just a second, unless anybody wants to stop along the way. But as an overview for wastewater, we are looking at the slough sewer improvements project has funding and is in progress for the design. And no, sorry, not the slough. Sorry. Slough sewer has funding for construction, and VSW is looking at putting out the RFP to complete that project. Sewer treatment facility has funding for design, and then an initial implementation, and that's supposed to be rollover funding, where every year more funding is added to the project for the construction. And then again, like water, if you go the next 3, Block Street Vista and evaluation of Inlet Street, are all included in that overall planning grant through VSW. So we're definitely making progress on those. If there are any projects that you guys would like to call out and discuss specifically, we can do. Otherwise, we can jump to the septic lift station repair and the sluice lift station repair and talk about those priorities.
Any other comments on any of those other projects? Okay, with, yeah, I mean, I appreciate the update on all those. And yes, we are making substantial improvement here. Going to be a lot of stuff happening here in the next couple of years in Seldovia here. We start getting these planning documents out of the way and start getting the money rolling, and then start getting our construction projects going here. Septic lift station repair. So, obviously that's going to be separate from those. I mean, does that include the pumps and stuff that we're talking about now, or other things that aren't part of the sewer treatment facility improvements project?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excellent question. If you turn to page 58, you'll see the project description. This is something that's been going on in the background for years, and the fact that we didn't have it documented in our CIP was just astounding, but it's here now. This is the project. We're on the temporary pump in the lift station, and we need to update that so that we can operate until or when we have the new sewer treatment facility, however that's going to be designed, if that'll include it. We're working on that piece, but in the meantime, we know this isn't going to hold out until that project comes through. And so this is just documenting it in the plan that even though we have funding through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund with 100% forgiveness, and we've issued out the RFP, we have a contractor who is set to come in the spring, just showing it that this, in case anything gets waylaid, backlogged, heaven forbid, that this is a priority. It's in our CIP. We have identified and want to address this very essential infrastructure and the critical need that it is right now. So hopefully that helps you guys be able to wrap your mind around what we're discussing. But this is that critical need at the end of the road where we're on that temporary pump.
Yeah, and I think this was a pretty obvious one then. I mean, yeah, we do have some funding identified, and it is absolutely critical. We're in knee deep in it if we have problems here. So I would think this would obviously be a one. And then that way, if there is any issues, we continue to keep it elevated in an elevated status so that we can get things fixed and keep this thing up and rolling while we're working through the rest of our planning project.
I would agree, Mr. Mayor. It should be a number one priority.
Any objections to that from council?
No objections here.
Not for me either.
Okay. Heidi, you're good with that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So then if we look at the Sluice Sewer Lift Station Pump Replacement Project on page 49, this is also new, but again, trying to track what our needs are moving forward for maintenance and capital infrastructure or capital projects. This is something that staff identified a few years ago, and previous administration did receive a Clean Water State Revolving Fund for $48,125. And that has a loan forgiveness of $33,688. So there would be a city share if we finished off the loan paperwork process for this equipment of $14,437. The reason why this is a priority for staff is that, let me see, make sure I put it on here. Looking at the fact that we do not have any spare motors. One of the pumps that's in operation, if you look at the last paragraph, we don't have any spare motors for pumps on site. We've rebuilt these things multiple times over the year. By the way, one was recently rebuilt, but the tapper on the shaft was incorrect and needs replaced. The city may also consider purchasing spare impellers. I can't pronounce that next word. I apologize. And in the event of emergency, repair or rebuild needs to occur in-house. It's critical for safeguarding the health and well-being of our Seldovia residents and visitors, so on and so forth. But really, the reality is we have two pumps in there. They're working. We don't have anything spare, and we don't have any spare parts. And one of the pumps is not working correctly, even though it was recently rebuilt. So if we purchase new pumps, we can send the one that's not working correctly up and get it rebuilt. And then we'll always have pumps on the shelf that if anything goes out, we can transfer them.
Yeah, Heidi, this one's fairly easy for me too. I mean, anytime you start talking sewer, has to, I know there's, things that we can wait and Band-Aid, but man, I look at some of these and when they go down hard, it is more than a disaster. So, and then you start getting that stuff, backing up into people's houses, you get raw sewage flowing down the lagoon, or the slough, it's a mess. So, again, if we did get this completed, the funding request on this, we're talking $15,000 on our share. To me, that's money well spent to make sure we've got new pumps, new infrastructure on that, and we can guarantee that we're not going to have, as much as possible doing our, the most responsible thing we can do is make sure that we've got good pumps in working order for, for all this infrastructure. So I absolutely think this should be a one, and we should move forward with this, because I know this has been a discussion over the years, a number of times. John?
I'm just glad to hear those remarks. It should be a one in my book as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John. Anyone else disagree with that or have any other comments on that sewer lift station pump replacement?
I agree with you.
Okay, sounds good. Heidi, you good with that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
So we will move on then to collaborative capital projects and partnerships, unless there's any last remarks on our special revenue funds projects.
Okay, give me the page you're going back to now, because now I got to go back.
I'm moving forward to 74.
Oh, okay. Just going down that way. Okay.
I had, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I just had one thing to bring up. I think this would be where to bring it up as we were talking about the, where we are in process with the water treatment or the sewer treatment facility, and knowing that that's, this year by year and building is, I'm not sure if it's appropriate or not to put it in here, but I think we need to be starting the process, and it might be something where there could be grants or help out there to help us prepare, but getting prepared for what those costs and labor, what that's going to entail, and starting that now. So that way we're ready when it's up and running and we've got the community prepared and we're able to utilize the facility and it doesn't make us go under.
Are we talking operations and maintenance costs, beginning those discussions?
The costs and how to prepare for those. And that's why my brain kind of went that could be part of a project in here, because that's something that there could be opportunities of outside sources to help us be creative with that, because we may need to be. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we need to be starting to think about now. And because that's going to change over time too, just as everything does. But is it 4 or 5 years? How far out are we seeing it now?
We're probably still 8 to 10 years.
Okay. I knew it was like a ways, but, and so a lot can change in that, but I think having that as part of that project or a sub project of it in itself is going to be really important. Because out of any of the projects we have, that's going to have potentially the biggest impact in that way.
And I think the as a follow-up to that, or follow on, the O&M piece of that was a kind of a major discussion point on, what type of facility we were talking about even being able to come up with, because we knew that if we built something super elaborate, it was going to run us right out of town on the costs to operate and maintain it. So, that's a good point. I think it'll still be part of the planning discussion, but yeah, that's going to be our biggest worry as a community and a city is how do we pay for that? How do we staff that? And what's the real cost going to be to the residents?
I guess that's where my I'm thinking just as we've been getting some opportunities right now, of having assistance from other places or guidance, of keeping that on our minds that might be something that we can bring in that process. So it's not just on us to figure that out.
Yep, good point. Good point. Heidi, I don't know what we'll have to do that. Maybe we can just have a little additional, piece if you want to start something new, or if it's, a more dedicated piece as part of the planning, when we get into the, a little more heavier into the planning piece of that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will make sure to include it in that project description. And then as we move forward in the discussions, of course, that'll be on the forefront.
Okay. Thanks for bringing that up, Ashley. Okay, back in your court, Heidi.
If there isn't anything else on our special revenue funds, moving forward to collaborative capital projects and partnerships, there's a brief table on page 74 of what those are. Seldovia volunteer fire and EMS emergency radio grade upgrade is new, so we'll turn to that page next. But looking at the rest of them, they are all relatively similar, except I forgot to cross off the list the ice skating rink recreation area, which and the public washteria, which have both been incorporated into other projects. So those two, if I am correct, let me look at it real quick. Yep, those two are no longer standalone projects. And we have the new one for the volunteer fire and EMS emergency radio upgrade. So if you switch to that page 75, it's our commitment to partnering with Seldovia Village Tribe, Seldovia Recreational Service Area, Chamber of Commerce, Arts Council, Homer, Kenai Peninsula Borough, and KPED, as well as the state of Alaska. Just to throw out there for information, I did have a meeting with the Homer city manager and Crystal Collier, the CEO and president of Seldovia Village Tribe last month. Both entities are happy with the partnership and would like to see us continue. So we discussed if we needed to redo our resolutions or update that commitment, and everybody felt at this time we're still moving forward and we're in a good place. So we remain committed to partners with each other. Seldovia Chamber of Commerce, I'm happy to say, is our partner for the Community Change Grant. Seldovia Recreational Service Area, we know, entered into a partnership with us so that they can have activities off campus on city property. Kenai Peninsula Borough, we're working on for the hazard mitigation plan and safe streets. And the KPED, continues to keep us in the loop, state of Alaska in the loop. And the one thing that I did not put on here, but just to keep in mind, is that DOT can be another valuable partner. And as I've alluded to in this discussion, I have reached out to them recently regarding a few items ongoing in the city, including a couple of projects like the bike path and the community change grant, and the new inlets for stormwater management, the request to reduce speed limits, jackloff. Oh, there was one more because there was 5. So, they are. Oh no, I already said that. So because there are 5, but so that is something, that they, in that email, wanting to approach it as how do we collaborate? How do we partner on these opportunities? Did receive a very positive response back about how these are all very positive initiatives. They have to go on to leadership, and there's several layers to all of them. So I'm sure it's going to take a while to get a response back, but wanting to throw that out there, that DOT is another partner that we have in this community and that we have an MOA with for maintaining the streets. So we continue to move forward on those fronts and those commitments all the way around. So just putting that out there for information. If there isn't any feedback on it, we can move to the next project, which is a new one, and that's on page 76, Seldovia Volunteer Fire and EMS Emergency Radio Upgrade. And if you guys are all there with me, this is a collaborative project, meaning it's not necessarily the projects in this category are not something that we're necessarily seeking funding for ourselves, but we're including these projects so that if these entities need support and that it's listed in a plan, it's in our plan, that the city of Seldovia supports this, it's this priority level, as well as we've found such value in this document and helping pursue funding just by keeping track of it all. That when I sent emails out to these agencies that we partner with, I really wanted to emphasize the fact that even the support's even being provided by being included in the plan, because it's a one place that you can go back and look at and you have the information. It starts building up that project description and helps track it for the future, especially if there's turnover. So this is in here with a total project cost of $95,741, but wanting to make sure that that's clear, that doesn't necessarily mean that we are seeking funding for it, just that we are supporting the department as they seek funding for it.
Heidi, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think it's absolutely appropriate that our other quasi city, entities, services, we support them in any way we can. And certainly by having this information as part of our CIP is good. Do we need to identify a priority level on here for this, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, we don't necessarily. It could just be that it's included in here as a priority.
Okay.
Does that sound more feasible to?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. I think this one, I know Jennifer talked, about this one too, when this was first brought up. And I think it's obviously makes a lot of sense that we need to make sure that our emergency responders have, the best communications possible, here in the very near future as all these radios start to age out. So maybe there is, at some point there is some sort of first responders or, fire EMS grant that comes up that, we need to help them with, or, we can collaborate on or whatever. So, maybe that's through us and our partnership with SVT, who knows, but I'm sure there's opportunity out there for funding to get these radios replaced. So I appreciate you putting it as including it as part of the CIP.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, there is opportunity. They're already looking at it. So hopefully they are successful with it. And for now, we will just hold it and track it for them and show that support. On the next page, if there's anything else on that, another collaborative project is the increased digital equity through access to broadband. And this is something that there's a lot of interest in, but isn't a project that the city of Seldovia is necessarily going to accomplish on its own. I am aware that Seldovia Village Tribe has applied for funding. I believe there's a few other agencies out there that are interested in funding, some telecoms, HEA, definitely some potential opportunity. So just making sure that we include this in this plan as a priority of something that we would like to support and see coming through to the community. And if nothing else changes on it, just pointing that out there, that's why it is. If there's any feedback on that one.
I would say from my perspective here, priority level 1 is absolutely appropriate for this. There has been a lot of money awarded by the federal government. Alaska received a nice chunk of that due to our remote locations and the way the layout of Alaska is with all of our remote communities and stuff. So and the bottom line is, if you don't have good internet these days, you're out of the game. So and our internet is still, it's okay, but it's not great. So even on a good day, But yeah, so hopefully sometime in the future here, it'll just continue to get better and better, and maybe we'll get be fortunate enough to get one of these larger fiber projects awarded for our community. Any other thoughts, comments from council on this one? Okay, thanks,
Mayor
Heidi.
Campbell,
Oh,
I'm
go ahead,
actually,
John.
I'm good with that as well. It definitely still needs some work. It's just not at the level or that it should be, in my opinion, yet.
Yep. Okay, you're good with that one, Heidi?
Yes, thank you. If there's anything else on that one, if we go to the next page, this is the rest of our collaborative projects. And remember, I said there was one more thing for DOT, and that was pedestrian pathway and sidewalk improvements. Asking them, I spoke to the desire of the council and the community to see some of those improvements, specifically ADA accessible pathways and encouraging pedestrian safety. So we'll receive feedback from them on that, hopefully in the near future. Otherwise, this is a project that was already in there and remains the same, with the only differences that we added in below it as a separate project, an alternative pedestrian and bicycle pathway on Jackloff Bay Road. So we had that discussion at the last work session. It's now its own paragraph. It does not have a priority level if you guys want to assign one to it. And then public art installation remains in there the same at a priority level 4. And that's a thought of partnering with the Seldovia Arts Council.
All right, thank you for that. So on the alternative pedestrian and bicycle pathway, the priority level on that, I mean, my thoughts are it's a 3 or 4. Obviously that would be a massive project, I think, depending on how far out we're talking here. And knowing how narrow that road is already out in some of those areas. But unless I'm missing the mark here, it's probably going to be a 3 or 4. Any other thoughts, comments from council?
Mayor Campbell,
Yep.
I was thinking of 3
Okay.
on that. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I think a 3 is appropriate, especially with what we're trying to do out at Jackaloff, because that's going to create the want for more people to be traveling back and forth. And that also helps us with issues of parking for people traveling back and forth.
Okay, sounds good. Any other comments and or objections to making that a 3?
I would agree, Mr. Mayor, with the 3 on it. It's a big project, but it could take priority level 3. I'd agree with that.
Okay. Sounds good. Heidi, you're good with that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
So we are getting towards the end.
Can I comment on one more project on that list? Okay, thank you. The partnership with the Art Council. I'm not sure if you want to update that we've completed the light pole banners. That's still listed in there. But if you wanted something to put in there instead, if the city wanted to see themselves as a supporter of it, our next project that we're working through is wrapping the power boxes, the HEA power boxes. So that could maybe switch in there.
You've got that change noted, Heidi?
I did. And how about I can expand it even further to just partnering and supporting the SAC with their in plane air annual event and beautifying the city of Seldovia.
Perfect.
Thanks, Ashley, for catching that.
Yes. And well, it's on my mind because I had thought about it last night and I keep forgetting to bring it up and it probably doesn't go here. But or it might kind of fit in here, is with the end plein air, the fire hall doors. Just bringing up that it's on the art council's mind. It's really on some people's minds of, what happened to those doors. And I know they're going to get sandblasted off at some point here. It's been chipping. We were hoping and had been looking at different ways of preserving that, not having to redo the mural, but doing like a wrap of it and then having something by there showing, a tribute to the fact it was a hand painted mural by the community. But that's something that's in process because that is going to have to be a partnership with the city on how that's going to work with the doors down there, because it may be something that doesn't work until the future when new doors are put there or a different coating. We've been trying to research all of that so that we can actually have that project not just disappear, but still be there.
I can include that in.
Perfect.
Okay. Anything else on these collaborative projects? Okay, with that, we will move to page 79. And I wanted to leave these pieces in here before I removed them, just so that if there was any hesitation or comment on it. The reason I struck out some of these items is because they've either, one, been taken care of, or two, they're in the plan. For instance, the first one's Seldovia Upper Dam. It's in the plan. Second one that's struck out is the digital mapping. It's in the plan. Just going down the list, ones that we're either not working towards or are included or are taken care of. So if you have any comments on that, and then I would want to comment one more on the highlighted item, recap the roof of the water storage tank, and keeping an eye on this. This is something that's been a need for a while. I don't have a figure yet for it, if it's going to be over 5,000 in a capital project or if it's going to be something that we include in the budget in an upcoming year. But what's happening right now is that it's slowly disintegrating or peeling. And so the birds have found it and they're picking it, the coating that's on the top of that storage tank. They're picking at it and it's just becoming, more and more of a problem. So we need to recoat it. I have exciting news that our former employee, Jordan Cameron, has signed on and is now working for Alaska Rural Water Association. And he's been in contact with me over the last week. Well, we've been in contact about various projects for a while, but over the last week since he's started in that position, and he is, because he has awareness of what some of the needs are in Seldovia, he's working through what it would look like in his position to be able to help us with some of this budgeting and cost estimates. One of his focuses being the depth for the airport water main that we know is not appropriately, it's not deep enough. And the other one, this recap the roof. So he had some ideas on that and was going to spend some time and try to come up with a budget that we could use with recommendations for material to do that recapping with. And I highlighted it because potentially it could move up into a capital project depending on what that budget is, and just for my peace of mind, keeping an eye on it, knowing that we are going to need to address it one way or another in the future.
Okay, that's good information. Thanks for the update on that. Yeah, that'll be cool seeing Jordan getting hooked up with those guys, and obviously Kevin and his group. So that'll be nice with someone coming over that continues to have history on all of our systems over here.
So if we don't have any comments then on the updates for that, the last piece that's not included in here yet is the update for our grant funding. We've had a lot of activity. Quite frankly, I just haven't made it through those documents, but that'll be in there before the plan is presented for adoption. I would like feedback from council on if you think we need to have another work session to see those changes that were recommended, or if they're inconsequential enough that we can move forward and present this at an upcoming council meeting. And actually, I take that back. We will need another work session to discuss, unless you guys know now and want to work through it now, what those capital and state requests are for next year. Might be worth sitting on it for a minute, and then we have a next part of this discussion as well. So I'll leave that to you, Mr. Mayor, on how you want to leave that. If it's just having that on your guys' mind for what those state and federal requests are, and we can have a work session before the next meeting. That should be a shorter one to make that determination with these changes. And then still have that CDBG conversation we have next, or having that CDBG conversation before the next meeting. I guess that's what is your guys' appetite tonight for these discussions?
If we're gonna have do we have time? I mean, we've got another meeting next Monday, right?
Yep, we have a regular meeting and we have space to have a work session prior to
Yeah,
that.
if we're gonna have a work session, I would be up for we're already just over 2 hours in here. I would be up for having the CBDG and the state and federal requests in that next meeting, because I still think we could probably get that done, in an hour and a half or something, relative much shorter than this discussion, I think.
I would agree, Mr. Mayor. I'd be in favor of that, doing it on Monday.
Everybody else good with that?
I'm good with that. I already have it in my calendar for some reason.
I'm good with it.
I'm fine with that.
All right, you see where the appetite is, Heidi.
So 4:30 work session on Monday to discuss prioritizing capital and state and federal capital project requests and talk about CDBG.
Yeah, yep, let's do that. And then we can get those knocked out, and then we can have our meeting. That would be good. Do we have anyone in the audience or online that wants to comment on any of the topics that we've covered tonight on the CIP? Liz?
Yeah, we have Jack Barber's in the audience here. He's gonna turn a mic on here.
Okay.
If you'd like to make any comments as a member of the public right now on what we've discussed.
Hey, Jack. I can't. Is his mic on?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
There's a couple of things that I've thought about that none left out. And I don't know if tonight's the night to talk about it, but maybe on the next meeting I'll think about it. One of the projects that I think is essential, your water and sewer, obviously, but there's no water and sewer at the airport, and we'll move a lot of people through that. And fire protection and road safety and everything, I think it's something that we need to address, getting water and sewer. There's not even nothing wrong with credit on the airport facility out there, and there's a bigger need than that. So,
Hey, Liz, can we?
that'd be something we ought to think about maybe in the future.
Yeah, we've got that same issue with the feedback. I don't know if we can swap mics out real quick. Sorry about that. Jack, yeah, this is one of the issues we have with the technical difficulties. I don't know if your mic will reach over to that table, Liz, or not.
Hello? Testing?
Yep,
Does this one work?
yep, loud and clear there.
Okay, let's try this one.
Sorry about that.
No. I don't know.
There we go, Jack, loud and clear
Oh,
now.
you got me now?
Yep, loud and clear.
Yeah,
There we go.
my comment was the water sewer. I mean, we've got water in a close proximity at the airport, but all the new hangars and facilities out there not having water and sewer, and public restroom for passengers that are coming and going. I mean, that's one of our main lifelines to the mainland across the pond and I think at some point we need to address that and see if we can't get water and sewer at the airport.
Yeah, that seems to make a lot of sense. I don't know. That's probably, since that's all FAA or DOT, it's probably I don't know what it takes to do that. They probably need approval from the city, I would imagine. Heidi, have you ever had discussions with the DOT on what it would take to, I know there's been a number of other folks that have talked about that in the past.
Yeah, I don't know what the protocol would be on that, but I know Anchorage, and even though it's state lease property, the municipality of Anchorage still is your water and sewer utility company. So I don't know why that would differ here, but and it's a service that the city would collect for as well. So, and there may be some funding for that, but the fire marshals, they want to kind of hold your toes to the fire on building codes and things like that. We don't even have any water out there. So it's kind of I don't know how to address that, but anyway.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That seems like a pretty valid point, something to look into, Heidi, and yeah, maybe a topic of discussion in the future here to start thinking about what it would take to do that.
And on another note, I mean, if you look at some of the value that's harbored in the hangars and that, and then insurance, and they ask you where's the closest fire hydrant, and you say, well, it's a ways down the street, so it affects everything, anyway.
All right, thanks, Jack. Appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to include that under capital improvement projects for future consideration?
Yeah. Why don't we do that? Then at least it's on there and something to slowly start looking into. Liz, do we have anybody else signed up or in the audience?
We have nobody else in the audience and no one has signed up online.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, I appreciate everyone's time tonight. Thanks for the discussion. Heidi, hope you got everything you needed out of that. I think we had some good discussion. Appreciate all the staff's effort on getting that the CIP back in front of us. Yeah, good document, and it's only every time we meet and discuss, it just gets better and better. So, and obviously that work is paying off in with the amount of grants and funding opportunities that we're seeing and we're able to actually get. So super nice to see some progress in the community going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, if there's nothing else tonight, we'll go ahead and adjourn the work session, and our next regular meeting will be next Monday, October 28th at 6 p.m. So we are adjourned. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Mr. Mayor.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah.